Hey, Rob.
Yo, what's up, man?
What's up, man? How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good, man. With the world's upside down, and we're still doing. I think so. Well, this is my. We're gonna do these shows like this, right? Right now,
Okay.
and then like in a week or two, we'll do a video for it.
Okay.
Like we'll do a bunch of them, but we'll do the video a little shorter. But for now, let's do it like that. At least we can get the podcast out there.
Right.
And what I might do is just put a picture of us on YouTube with this vocal in the back.
Okay, that's good. At least it's something on YouTube because I think a lot of people are watching it off YouTube.
Yeah, I'm definitely putting something on YouTube. It'll be like I'll figure something out. Maybe put a picture. I'll even dub it Chinese. Worst case scenario.
No, I think just this case, just a picture, one picture we have up already, something.
Yeah, and then the background. So, Mike, man, what a fucking album, man. End of the century.
Yep.
This is the Rock Show episode 62, and I got a lot of questions for you because this album had a lot of controversy.
Oh yeah, definitely. It was, when it came out, a lot of people had mixed feelings about it. Ramones fans. It was something that, a change of sound for them in some ways, a lot of ways, and it was really they were trying to make a hit. And after 4 albums of critical acclaim and great live shows, they just never had that hit. But they were trying with this one.
Mike, I got to tell you, like, I heard some of the demos, and I didn't think the demos were that bad. Like, I heard the demos before
No,
Spector, and they
no.
were good.
I wish that there would be like a re-release of that album with just the demos. I don't know if they all exist, but the ones that are on that deluxe version before the Phil Spector production, I think they're as good as anything they did prior to that.
Dude, and how about the rumors that he had a gun and he kept these
Yep,
motherfuckers hostage?
yep. I mean, let's get into it. You want me to give the story here?
Let's go. Let's go into it. Let's talk about this great album.
All right. We are talking about the Ramones End of the Century album that came out February 4th, 1980. It was the band's fifth studio album. And like I just said, that commercial success was eluding them all this time. Critically, they were acclaimed. Live shows they were known for. At this point, they were too big to even be playing CBGBs. They were playing larger clubs. They had done some big shows in Europe and things like that. And Phil Spector, the famous producer who did the Ronettes and the Crystals and, the famous Christmas album and stuff in the 60s. He worked with the Beatles. He worked with John Lennon. He was interested in working with the Ramones since the Rocket to Russia album, which was about 2 years earlier, 3 years earlier.
Wow.
He saw them live in LA in 77, and he had asked the band if he could assist with the production of Rocket to Russia, but the band said no because they were basically keeping everything in-house. Tommy Ramone, the drummer, he was the producer. They had some other people assisting them. They were happy with the way that was going. They didn't want to get any outside influence like that, especially somebody, so huge as Spector. They felt it might be a change in their sound. In 77, they weren't ready to do that. Okay. But Rocket to Russia and then the next album, Road to Ruin, didn't really hit commercially. So Sire Records asked Phil Spector to produce the next album.
Yep.
And that became End of the Century. He was more than happy to take on the project. He thought the Ramones' natural sound would kind of work with what he was known for, his wall of sound concept. Okay, now, do you understand when I say wall of sound, what that is, Rob?
Yeah, it's like a different kind of extorted, like a different kind of sound.
Well, yeah, but the way he would achieve it is everything would be doubled or tripled. If it called for, if something called for one timpani drum, he would have like three.
Yeah.
Okay. And everything would be worked out in the production, and you'd get this kind of like distorted, almost muddy sound, but not in a
Yep.
negative way.
Yep.
And it just made it a lot bigger. And he felt that his wall of sound would work with the Ramones. Now, we'll get into that because there's some controversy with that.
So,
But
what
basically,
happened to Tommy Ramone?
well, okay, by the time between Rocket to Russia and Road to Ruin, Tommy was growing tired of the rigorous touring and craziness of being in the band. He was more comfortable with being behind the scenes. He originally he was the manager of the band before they
Okay.
ever started,
Yeah.
and he basically moved to drums because they never could find a drummer. If you remember our Ramones show last year,
Yeah.
Joey was the original drummer.
Yeah.
Okay, and he realized he had a decent voice, so that changed. Then Tommy became the drummer for the first three albums. When Road to Ruin came out in '78, the idea was he was going to turn the mantle of drumming over to Mark Bell, okay, and he became Marky Ramone.
Yeah.
And he taught Marky how to play that way because Marky's style of drumming was very different.
Yeah.
But he learned how to be a Ramones drummer. And Road to Ruin's a great album. But again, it was produced by Tommy and Ed Stasium, and it was supposed to be a commercial hit, but it wasn't. Okay, it really didn't do any better than the last three before that. So, by getting Phil, they were really hoping to have a big album with this. Now, Phil's attitude was he would tell Joey because he was really trying to get to Joey. He liked Joey's voice. He was looking at Joey as the linchpin of the Ramones, and
Yep.
he would tell him, "Listen, do you want to make a good album or a great album?" Okay, and eventually everybody was on board, and Phil was brought in.
Mike, you want to hear something funny? Well, I can think when Ramones fans first heard this album, they probably this is a sellout.
Some did think that. Um, you know, I was when that came out in 1980. I wasn't quite on board with the Ramones at that point, so my opinions. I was a little young, but when I got into the Ramones big time in '83 and '84, I used to listen to this album rarely. Okay, not a lot because there was just something about it I didn't get, and then it took me a few years, but then I got it. Okay, because the more I understood the Ramones and what they were about, the more I got that album. The album. I mean, it Joey especially loved Phil Spector and
Yeah.
his music, and Dee Dee did too. And one aspect about the Ramones that kind of gets lost in the shuffle of them is their pop sensibilities. Okay, when the Ramones started, there was no such thing as punk. Okay,
No.
it didn't exist. There was no term for it really. There was no genre that said, okay, we're going to start a punk band. No, they started it, but they had every intention of making it. There was no like, oh, we want to stay, unknown or no. The Ramones wanted to be the biggest band in the fucking world. Okay. The problem was is that they were playing something that nobody played before. They were, limited musically, but that didn't stop them from writing great pop songs. There's not much of the difference between the Bay City Rollers and the Ramones.
Oh
Not,
yeah.
there really isn't.
Nah.
you know, um, they started in the recording sessions for this on May 1st, 1979, at Gold Star Studios in Hollywood, and that was
Okay.
Phil did all the productions. Uh, the album budget on this was interesting. It was $200,000.
Mike, I was looking at that. That's a lot of money for one album.
Well, it's still, their whole history was their highest budget they ever had on any album before or after that, and it was actually 16 times the cost of their first album in '76.
That's insane.
Yeah,
That is insane.
yeah. I mean, it's just, Saya, I think was pulling all the stops out. They said, okay, 1979, the Ramones had just made a movie, Rock and Roll
Yeah.
High School.
Yeah.
Um, the world was coming around a little bit. Punk had kind of started to wane off, and then you had like new wave, and the Ramones were trying to like get in on that, ride that wave a little bit. And I think the record company thought, they've been around for a few years. This is their time. So they gave them this budget. Okay. And I'm sure Phil, requested it or, whatever. But they weren't used to recording in any way like that. Okay. They were used to going into a studio, spending a few days, banging it out, and going home.
Oh yeah.
They were in for a fucking shock working with Phil Spector, right?
Oh my God, dude, he made them take takes over take, like Dee Ramone, and even these guys were doing takes over take, and they were like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I mean, Johnny would go absolutely nuts because he would be forced to do the opening chord of, say, Rock and Roll High School for 12
Yeah,
hours. That's like Chinese water torture.
yeah, that's what pretty much he said. That was a tiny one. So
Yeah,
you want to hear something crazy for the song "Baby I Love You"?
yeah,
They didn't even show. The only guy they used, Joy was the only one. Everybody else was another guy playing a different instrument. It wasn't even a Ramone.
yeah. I mean, because that song is, and I'm gonna go into like each song individually, but that one,
How fucking
just
crazy is
it's
that?
just Joey. It's just Joey with like a full orchestra behind him.
Yeah,
You
how
know?
crazy is that?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that was something that I think was more of something that Joey and Phil wanted to do together. Without the other Ramones, they stuck that on there because that was a song that Phil Spector had written and produced all those years earlier.
Yeah,
You know, but like you said, he would ask for like so many retakes of songs, and he would listen to one note over and over or a drum beat over and
yeah,
over. It was totally slow, tedious. The band just hated it. Joey probably was the most patient, but the rest of the band, especially Johnny, couldn't deal with it. Um, After the session where Johnny was asked to do the opening chord to Rock and Roll High School for 12 hours, he walked out. He walked out. Okay. And it wasn't just the recording. Okay. Phil Spector, was eccentric. That's the only way to describe it. He would come in. He would come into the studio wearing a purple cape, okay, and sunglasses with like platform shoes on because he was like 5 feet tall, okay,
yeah,
and he would sit there and drink his Manischewitz wine from a big like Dracula style goblet, okay, you know, he would wear different wigs, okay. Even when he was old, did you ever remember when he got arrested for murder? He had the wig on, the big curly one.
Oh yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, like what the fuck, man? What was that?
So Mike, let me give you a little information. So this record was released on February 4th, 1980. So we're like on the 40th anniversary of this
We just
album.
hit it. Yeah, we just hit it last month. It's you know, I think now it's considered a classic. Okay, I
It's a
think
fucking great album.
yeah, it really is. It really is. And as years have gone by, I think it's really shown that. Is it their best album? No,
No.
no. But is it worth listening to? Yeah, I think it's one of their most interesting albums. Okay, and some of the songs on there are instant classics, like "Let's Go," the last song on the first side, where
Yeah.
the Dee Dee's talking about like like war shit and like Soldier of Fortune kind of stuff, and it's like that's such a Dee Dee song. You know what I mean? If you knew,
Yeah, definitely.
Dee Dee was into like Soldier of Fortune. He used to subscribe to it,
Yeah.
and he would like write songs and lyrics about you know weapons and shit like that. You know what I mean? He just did that. He was like a big kid.
Yeah. So Mike, so there was the original version of this album was 34 minutes and 14 seconds long. What I
Yeah.
did, I got the deluxe one, and the deluxe was almost like an hour. It was like 51
Oh yeah.
minutes long.
Yeah, because Rhino had put that out in the early 2000s. They remastered all the albums up until Too Tough to Die. 1984's Too Tough to Die. Everything has been remastered by them up until that album. And what they put on there was the demo versions, like we were just talking about,
Yeah.
demo versions of Rock and Roll Radio. I think I'm Affected, uh, Rock and Roll High School, maybe I forget. And then I love that little commercial at the end. Did you hear that?
That is fantastic.
That little radio promo with
Yes, that's
Joey.
fucking great.
Yeah. I mean, that's worth it to get. Definitely, from Rhino. It's on Amazon. You could probably get it for $10.
Yeah, I just got it from my. It's on my
I can,
Apple. I just looked it up, and Apple got the whole album, and they
yeah.
got the regular album too.
You mentioned a few minutes ago about the story of them in the house with the gun.
Yeah, that shit was insane.
Okay, now let me just go into that because one night he brought the band back to his house. Now he had a 23-room mansion, all right, and he brought them back there after they were recording, and after a little while, it became clear that like they were not going to be able to leave. That they were actually like almost being held prisoner. He had guard dogs in the house. Okay, I think Rottweilers, if I remember the story right. Okay, and there was certain rooms that you just would look and there'd be a dog sitting in there. All right, and then when they were getting ready to try to leave, he pulled a gun on him and said, "You can't leave." And Johnny, after a while, what had happened was sadly during these sessions, Johnny's father died back here in New York, and he had to leave. And his attitude was like, I'm getting the fuck out of here now. I don't care what you do, Phil. What are you going to do? You're going to shoot me? You're going to fucking shoot. You're going to shoot the guitar player in the Ramones, And he let them go. Okay. But what happened during that night too is Phil kind of grabbed up Joey and took him into, I guess, another room where they had a long conversation.
Yeah, it was like a 3-hour meeting.
Yeah, and Joey, I've heard stories that Phil, asked him, this could be a solo album for you. You could leave these guys. You're the one I want to work with, not these guys. Like, they was kind of fucked up.
Yeah, he was trying to split the band.
Trying to get him away. And Joey wasn't having anything of it. He knew that he was nothing without the Ramones. You ever hear the story? Just as a side note, you ever hear the story about Joey and Van Halen?
No.
When David Lee Roth left the band, that was like after the 1984 album. Remember? Yeah. Did you know that Eddie Van Halen seriously considered asking Joey Ramone to join?
Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. It never got to a point where he actually asked him, but he was like one of the people that was seriously considered.
He would have been better than Sammy fucking Hagar.
Well, anything would have been better than that. A fucking, a fucking retard would be better than that. I never liked Hagar, man. Never liked that guy. What was the problem too was not just that Phil was favoring Joey. He would like during the sessions. It was just obvious that he had contempt for the rest of the band except Joey. So it made the recording really difficult, okay? Now, Johnny left the sessions because of these problems and because his father died. And he had no intent of coming back. He's like, he told Seymour Stein from Sire, fuck him. I ain't working with him, all right? And everything kind of came to a head. Seymour got in touch with Phil. Johnny was back in New York, and Seymour convinced Johnny to come out and have a meeting with Phil in Joey's hotel room in Los Angeles, okay? Because the rest of the band was still out there. And he went, and they had a big talk. And apparently the story goes is that Phil was actually afraid of Johnny. He thought, like, Johnny was going to beat the shit out of him. So he had his bodyguard with him there and shit at the meeting.
You know what I heard? I heard that it wasn't even Phil. They say Phil had a gun, but it was mostly the bodyguards that had guns.
Yeah, well, the bodyguards were all armed, but Phil would wave a gun around. He had one in his waist belt.
Okay, yeah. Yes, he did.
And sometimes he had more than one. All right.
Yeah, Three Guns they were talking about.
Yeah, yeah, and there's different versions of this. There's Dee Dee's version, which is like, probably not quite accurate. And then, there's Joey's and there's Marky's version. They all seem to have the same
You know
thing,
what? Marky
that he
at
had a
first
gun.
said.
But
Marky at first said that they had guns, and then he said, "Oh no, they didn't have guns. It was the bodyguard." Like he changed his.
yeah, they changed the story over the years too. Like when the album came out, none of this was known. They didn't start talking about this until like 2 or 3 years later. Okay, you started hearing about little crazy fucking stories that happened during the making of that album.
Yeah,
But when they released that album, it was like everything was hunky dory, man. They weren't talking about that, you know. Um, when they had this meeting, when Johnny and Phil had the meeting, they basically came to an agreement that they'd have to work faster. Johnny couldn't work the tedious way that Phil was doing it. So Phil agreed. Okay. Um, Finally, when the album was released, the critical reception of it was pretty positive, right?
yeah, definitely.
Um, but not as much as other albums previously. And again, the fans were mixed on it. Some felt it was kind of like a watered down version of the Ramones. You know, the production, the wall of sound didn't quite work. But some people liked it. They thought it was great, and it showed that the band could evolve a little bit, and not just be the same album over and over and over. Which is kind of what the first three are.
Yeah,
See, like people love to shit on the Ramones and say like all their stuff sounds the same. That's not really true. Okay, this album is a perfect example of that. Okay, because this sounds like no other album.
yeah,
All right, but like even if you listen to, if you ever have a chance, like listen to Rocket to Russia, and then listen to Road to Ruin.
yeah.
All right, there's a difference there.
Oh, there
They
is a
have a
difference,
lot
of
more
course.
songs. They have a lot more songs on Road to Ruin that are like mid tempo, not that fast.
Yeah,
A little bit more like Joey doing his singing, and they were kind of like Johnny was the one that was always like, we can't change. We got to be the same. This is what the fans want. But the rest of the band, especially Joey and Dee Dee, were always open to a little bit of something different. Okay. And I think that kind of push and pull really worked for the band, like their whole time.
oh yeah,
Because if it was up to Johnny, they just would have been making the first album over and over and over. But like I said, the fans were mixed on it. I wanted to kind of go over each track individually. Would that be all right?
yeah. But let me tell you, Mike, this album was one of the most successful albums they ever had.
It was the most
One of the
successful in
most
America.
commercial, technically
It was.
commercial.
It got. Yeah, I mean, it almost broke the top 40. Okay, I think it got to 44.
Yeah, in the
Uh,
U.S., but I think in the U.K. it went up to 14.
yeah, it did. It did better in the UK, and then the "Baby I Love You" single did very well.
Yeah,
Okay, in the UK. Uh, so what can you say? I mean, it was their most successful album ever, and Phil Spector produced it. I mean, you got to hand it to
yeah.
him, right?
He did his job. He delivered.
He delivered. Okay. Was it number one? No,
No.
but it actually, if you look at what he had done prior to that, he hadn't been that active for a while. Like the stuff he did with John Lennon in the early '70s.
Yeah.
I like. I think it's the rock and roll album. Like he does the covers,
Yeah.
right? Uh, I'm not a big fan of that album. I think it's just kind of weak,
Mm-hmm.
and his stuff with Let It Be and everything I think is weak. Uh, to me, the stuff he had done, through the '70s up, except for maybe what I do like is George Harrison's "All Things Must Pass."
It's a great song.
Okay, that's the with like "My Sweet Lord" on
That
it.
got everything.
Yeah, that's a great album.
Yeah.
And that was Spector produced. But other
Yeah.
than that, I'm not in the '70s. He wasn't that great. And then he came out with this album. It was released in the beginning of '80, but I think it was his best piece of work in like
Dude,
years.
I think that George Harrison, that album we should do, that should be one of the albums that we do.
We could do a making of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Because you know what, since we did the Ronettes, and now we're into the Ramon and the Spectra. It looks like we're going with Phil for a while.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. That we could do that maybe next in May,
Yeah,
something like that.
Mike, I got to tell you, I think the start of this album start with. I do. Do you remember Rock and Roll Radio? I love that fucking song.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Now when that song is kind of like, I'll go over each one here. Like that's the first track on the first side, and it's a nostalgic type song, right? Talking about the music
Yeah,
the band grew up with, different bands. Dee Dee wrote the lyrics, and it was all about you know growing up and listening to the radio. Okay, and we all kind of did that,
yeah.
right? Our generation, generations before, and it was a different kind of song. I mean, there's saxophone in it. There's all kinds of stuff in that song.
I was
They
shocked by
never
that.
had a song. They never done like that, right? They never had
No,
that. Let me tell you, that song was performed live for the next 16 years that they existed. Okay, every show, and I saw them about 50 times, and they never not did that song.
think about what that song means today. If that song would have come up today, do you remember Rock and Roll Radio? Because it would make so much sense. There ain't no more radio.
Well, people wouldn't even know what they're talking
Yeah.
about. There'd be two generations of kids that don't fucking know what
But
that
you know
is.
what? That song was more like a song because there were more video coming on. They would talk about almost like, remember Rock and Roll Radio? Nobody's into radio, everybody watching video. Because radio went through that phase where everybody stopped listening to radio. They were watching like MTV.
Right. And there was a good video for this song too. I don't know if you ever saw it. It's the Ramones are like in a room, like a living room, and they're watching a TV, and they're watching like clips of, you know, all these old bands that they used to listen to. So, and then there's like a funny game show kind of thing going on with the pinhead guy
Oh
in
my
it.
God, I
It's a
remember
cool
that.
it's a cool video.
Yes, I remember
And
that.
yeah, and that was an early video that was played on MTV.
Yeah,
You know. Now the second song is a song called "I'm Affected." I always love
it's a
this
fucking
fucking
good
song.
song too.
Yeah, it's a dark
Yeah.
song actually. It has a lot of like echo in Joey's vocals. The drumming is very heavy by Marky. Now, for some reason, Joey didn't like this song. He felt it was a weak song, and they only would perform it live maybe for that album's tour and the one after. Okay, the Pleasant Dreams
I
album
thought I
tour.
thought this song was great, man.
Yeah, and I have a years and years ago, I still have it somewhere, but years and years ago, I had bought a cassette of a live show of them in Brooklyn. Okay, and I think in Prospect Park, and it was like '81 or something like that. And they do that. It's like they go rock and roll radio right into "I'm Affected" live, and and all the
Wow.
times I saw them, I never heard that song.
Wow.
Okay, they never brought it back, and that particular bootleg, they did it, and they were still doing it, and it worked live. It was a great fucking song, but I don't know why they cut it out. I guess just Joey felt it was a weak song or something, but I think it's a great
I
one.
think it's a great song.
Yeah, yeah. Now the next one is, without a doubt, in my top 10 favorite Ramon songs, the song "Danny
Yeah,
Says."
that's a very good
Okay,
song.
yeah. Now that's a song that's the lyrics deal with like the difficulties of touring, being in places where there's nothing to do. Okay, and then the actual title, "Danny Says," it's a take on Lou Reed and the Velvet Underground songs like "Caroline
Oh
Says"
yeah.
and and "Stephanie Says," songs like that Lou wrote. They decided to make it a "Danny Says," and Danny was actually Danny Fields, their manager.
Okay.
So that's why they did that. Now, a little side note with this: that song was never performed live in the Ramones.
Wow.
Okay, the only time it was ever performed live by Joey, I was lucky enough to be there. Okay, it was 1988 at the Ritz, that Circus of the Perverse show I've mentioned a few
Yeah.
times. That was one of the things they were promoting with the show. Like it said it on the flyer, like they're gonna do that song for the first time.
Wow.
But it wasn't. It wasn't the Ramones. It was Joey singing. It was, I think, Marky was on drums. Cheetah Chrome from the Dead Boys was on guitar. Lemmy was on bass from
Yep.
Motorhead, and they had some back. Ronnie Spector was on backups, and it was amazing. And it was the only time that they ever, he ever did that song. Because it's like it's an acoustic type song. They do it now at the birthday bashes for
Oh, they
Joey
do?
since he passed away. Yeah, his brother Mickey usually does it, or he might do like questioningly off the Road to Ruin album. But a lot of times he does Danny Says, and he does it great. His voice is very similar to his
Yeah.
brother's. So he sounds like.
Mike, let me ask you a question. Has the Ramones ever been on Saturday Night Live?
I not in the early years they weren't. I think didn't they go on? No, you know
I
what?
think they went on for Pet Cemetery for some reason.
I think, yeah, Pet Cemetery or something after that. I think they did. They were on like Letterman.
Oh,
I
they were
think.
definitely on
Okay.
Letterman.
Yeah, they were on Letterman. And Joey Ramone was on Leno at least once or twice. I remember that. But I don't think the band. That's a good question. I'm gonna look that up, okay? Because I don't think they ever did Saturday Night Live, Rob. I don't
You
think
know
so.
what would be a interesting show that we did that we should do for the rock show? Bands that been punk back that been on Saturday Night Live and the songs they play. Come on, that would be a hell of a show.
Yeah, that would be cool. That would be cool. Did you see the thing I posted yesterday with the Ramones on
Oh
Shanada?
yeah, that was great. I remember that show, Shanna. That was a great show.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. All right. Track 4 is Chinese Rocks.
My favorite song.
Okay.
I hate to say that.
Yeah, yeah, it's a great fucking song. Now that was written by Dee Dee and Johnny Thunders. Okay, and there's stories that Sid Vicious had a hand in the writing, but I somehow doubt that. Um, but the song's about heroin. Chinese rock was a type
Yep,
of heroin.
yep.
Now he wrote that back in like 76, I think, or so,
Yeah.
77. And he had brought it to the Ramones. When I say he, I mean Dee Dee. And they rejected it because they didn't think that, right, doing a song about heroin at that point was a good
Dude, let me
idea.
tell you, Sid
Okay.
Vicious definitely had a role there. He probably was doing the heroin and they started writing.
Exactly. They just looked at him and wrote a fucking
Yeah.
song. But Johnny Thunders and the Heartbreakers, they would do the definitive version of that song. That's the
Oh
best
yeah.
version as far as I'm concerned. But Joe, the Ramones in 80 with this album, this is the second best
Yeah,
version.
this is fantastic.
Okay? Yeah. And the next one is a song called The Return of Jackie and
I
Judy.
like this one too.
Yeah, it is. It's very catchy, and it's a musical sequel to Judy is a Punk off the first album.
Is that what it was? I didn't even put that together.
Yeah, if you listen to the lyrics, it's talking about Judy from that
Oh
song.
my God.
Yeah. And it's like what happened to them next, okay? They went to the mug club, they got drunk, like, okay. Yeah. Now, Marky Ramone, during the recording of this, when they brought this song out to do, like, he was like, this is corny. He's like, why do we got to do a sequel? Okay. But it works, okay?
It's fantastic, man.
I think it's one of the best songs on the album. It's just so fucking catchy. It should have been a single, as far as I'm concerned. But if you listen to it, you'll hear some hand clapping in the song, and that's actually the DJ Rodney Bingenheimer doing all the hand claps.
All right. That was like trying to figure that out.
Yeah, the LA DJ. Yeah, he did it. The next song is I mentioned this before. The song "Let's Go."
Let's Go.
Okay. Now that's the heaviest song on the album, I believe. And to me, it's a personal favorite Ramones song in general. But the songs are all about guns, ammo, soldiers of fortune. It's a typical Dee Dee kind of thing, he was into that stuff. Now, side two starts "Baby I Love You," the seventh
Yeah.
track. Okay. Now, it was the cover of the 1964 Ronettes
Yep.
hit that was originally produced by Spector, and it's the most controversial and divisive song on the album because I think this was the song that people went like, "What the fuck are they
Yes.
doing?" You know, why are they doing a song like this? You know, but it just, I don't know. I over the years, I used to skip it. I used to skip it all the time. Okay, but over the years, I've learned to like really kind of appreciate Joey's
It's a
vocals
great
on it.
version of the "Baby I Love You."
Yeah, yeah, you know, and it got released as a single, and it didn't chart here, but it got to number 8 in the UK.
Yeah, the UK always been very
Um,
different than the Americans.
Yeah, there's actually, you could look it up. That they were on Top of the Pops, I think, and they actually performed it. Now, it's funny because you have the band on stage, Joey's singing, but the band obviously is not playing a fucking thing because they're not even on the
Yeah, that's
song.
crazy.
But
That is crazy.
but they're going through the motions and everything. It's funny. Okay. Um, the next track is one of my all-time favorite Ramones songs, and I would put it as probably one of the best on the album.
This is
Absolutely,
definitely
called "I Can't Make It on
a
Time."
great song.
Okay, "I Can't Make It on Time." Now that was a perfect garage rock pop kind of gem, really, and it's almost like forgotten. Like people forget this song on the album. Um, and again, this is a song that they never continued doing. They did it live, I believe, on the next, this tour in '80, and then the tour in '81 and '82, and it just disappeared. I never heard them do this song live either. It was a song that I always like. Anytime I would make like a Ramones mix, this song would be
Hey,
on
let
it.
me tell you, you want to hear something crazy? This I hate to say this, but this was more like a dance album.
Well, not dance, but it
But
was
you could
like
move. Like it
danceable.
had some rhythm for you to move.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's look. All the Ramones songs are danceable. You just got to know how
No,
to
but I mean,
dance.
this one was probably the most like, let's get down, let's boogie.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was about look. The Ramones are always about
Yeah,
fun. Okay, and that's the thing that people don't get with them, and the ones that do get the Ramones, they
yeah.
get that. You know what I mean? Now the next track was another sequel. Okay, track 9. This ain't
It's fucking
Havana.
great.
Okay. Yeah, now it's a corny song. I mean, the
Oh,
lyrics in the background going like "bop bop banana" like that, right? Okay, you know, and he's saying like this ain't Havana. Do you like bananas? Johnny and Dee Dee wrote the song. It's a silly song,
yeah,
but it's catchy as fuck, just like the Return of Jackie and Judy, and it works. Then you get into track 10,
great
which
song.
is the classic Rock and Roll High
Yep.
School, right? Now the end of the century version is different than the version on the movie soundtrack a year earlier.
Yeah.
All right, it was given the whole wall of sound treatment with some sound effects. You got you got the school bell ringing at the beginning, okay, and all that stuff, and you hear the crowd of kids, and then the song just kicks in. And to me, it's the definitive version of that song. That's the version you got to hear, in my opinion. The next two tracks, I always kind of had a love hate kind of thing with because to me, it seemed like the album should have ended at Rock and Roll High School.
Oh
Like
yeah.
that, like that. I always felt like that could have been a perfect track to end with. Like just that was the end of the album right there. But they went with two other songs after that. One song called All the Way, and another one called High Risk Insurance. Now, they're two Ramones attack songs. I mean, they're like fast, catchy, and I mean, I'll be honest with you. For years, I thought they were kind of throwaway songs, but after many years of listening to them, they're great fucking songs.
Yeah, they are
Okay,
great.
they are. Now, there's one line in "All the Way" that there's an interesting story with it that I'll tell you. There's a line in there that says, "I love all the monitor men, but why are they alive?" Okay, so he's talking about the sound people. I love all the monitor men, but why are they alive? Now, do you remember when Guns N' Roses played the Ritz live on TV?
Yeah.
think it was like 88, something like that. Okay. There was one part of the show where Axel, in between the songs, he says that. He goes, "Hey," he goes, "I love all the modern men, but why are they alive?" And he's like talking to the sound people.
Yeah, to
And
fix the fucking sound.
I got the reference. You know what I mean? I was like, shit, he's quoting a fucking Ramones song right there at the Ritz. But like so many people went over their heads. But I was like, wait a minute, that's words from a Ramones song. You know, I thought that was an interesting side note. You could actually see that show still. They on YouTube, I think you could see it. A lot of the Ritz shows over the years have popped up on YouTube because they used to record them. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Back in the day when the Ritz was still around, you could see a show and let's say you missed it, you couldn't go. Okay. You could go down into the village like 2 weeks later and buy a video. It would be bootlegged because somebody would always record it like professionally, like right there. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. And I have a bunch of videos still from them, like the Ramones and Rich shows that were just right off the board, you know?
Wow.
So that's it for the album. Uh, I think
What
it's,
else you
I think
had?
it's,
You
I think,
forgot high risk insurance.
oh yeah, well, High Risk Insurance, it's just a Ramones attack song. It's great, you know?
It's fucking fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. No. I'm just giving you my opinion because for a long time I kind of used to skip those two songs. I don't
Yeah.
know why, but then just years later I like really appreciated them.
They were really good. Yeah, because the original, yeah, it was like those two songs came in. And
Yeah.
then if you got the deluxe one, it goes a little further. They got I Want You Around. They got a demo
Well,
of Danny song.
I Want You Around was from Rock and Roll High School. It was on the
Yeah, the
soundtrack.
soundtrack.
Yeah, it was on the soundtrack, and I believe Phil Spector had a hand in producing that. Okay, I believe off the soundtrack. I think he goes uncredited, but it was kind of like he was brought in to kind of show the band what he could do with his music, with their music. And that was kind of like, because that came out a year earlier. So right around that time was when they were talking about making End of the Century. And he came in like on that version on the deluxe,
Yeah.
it's the demo version. But on the Rock and Roll High School soundtrack, it sounds different. It's got like a more of a produced sound.
You know what's the other song that I like of this was for the demo was Please Don't Leave.
Yeah, that's an unreleased track. That was never. It's an outtake. They never used that song.
Dude, I thought that was fantastic.
Oh yeah. In fact, on all of those Rhino re-releases, everything from the first album up to Too Tough to Die, they all have demos and live stuff that's never been released. And I had made years ago when that came out, I had made a CD of all the demos on one disc.
Wow.
And I still listen to it because when you listen to those songs, like some of them are like, how the fuck did this not make an album?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, it's not a long song. Just stick it on there. You know what I mean? But the best bands always have throwaways like that go like, the Stones have them, they got throwaways that you can make a whole album out of, that's how great the Ramones were. Like their throwaways were that good,
Crazy, man. Crazy.
Oh yeah. So, this is the Ramones End of the Century. Next one, what are we gonna do? The Yardbirds, right?
The Yardbirds, I started reading a little bit about them, do a little research. I forget they had fucking Eric Clapton, Jeff Beck, and fucking Jimmy Page all played with these motherfuckers.
Oh yeah, and one of the most important bands of all time. We'll be talking about them next on the Rockshow.
Yeah. And Mike, where can people find you if they need to reach out on you?
Okay, well, this is the apocalypse version of the Rockshow. I'm in my apartment in Queens. If you want to come visit me, if you don't have the virus, But no, you can find me on Facebook under Michael Baker. I'm still doing my Facebook shenanigans. And also, I'm on Instagram, Rocker Mike 212, and on Twitter, Rocker Mike 3. Hopefully, the bars will be open by the time this gets shown, and
Yeah, like
you guys will be back in sitting at iBar. Hopefully,
somewhere either I-Bar or 7B, and then
7B. Yep.
you can reach me out at on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram, anything social media. You can reach out to me, Rob Rossi, or you can just go look up Getting Lumped Up, and we're everywhere. We're so many different podcasts that you can download and find us. We're making a big move this year because I think finally we're catching a little stride. And I think with this thing might help us. People might want to actually listen because they're going to need entertainment. There's
Yeah.
no sports.
There's nothing else. Just listen to the Lumped Up shows, people.
Yeah. So, Mike, remember, don't get drunk,
Get
get
lumped
lumped
up.
up.
Yep.